Greetings. This continues our series on the BigCommerce version 2 import steps, and this is now dealing with Mod 2 of the import spreadsheet. So we did all our preliminary cleanup and obvious cleanup stuff in Mod 1, and now we're just continuing the process. So Mod 2 is going to deal with removing junk data, or identifying it, adjusting existing data if necessary. Um, um, Changing the arrangement of the columns so it's more readable and easier to work with, and a few other minor changes. Okay, so picking up where we left off with Mod 1, we go to the Mod 1 spreadsheet tab, and then we do move or copy, move to end, create a copy. All right, this saves us the trouble of all that reformatting bullshit steps. And so we leave Mod 1 as it is. We now rename that to Mod 2. Get in the habit every time you do one of these major changes like adding a new tab or something like that, click Save. It's very, very important. Anyway, so now we continue with Mod 2 and do our reformatting and changing and slicing and dicing. From this point onward and all the further steps, we'll be referring more and more to the information in the V2 import guide. In this case, the step NP fields for the new product fields. So it's easier rather than having to keep two spreadsheets up, which will screw up the conversion programs if you have two spreadsheets open at the same time. Let's just go ahead and create a new tab, rename that iGuide, and copy the import guide information into that so we can close that spreadsheet and have that information ready at hand as we're continuing our processing. So let me go ahead and now we have that there, and we can put this over here next to source, and now we've got that ready and handy, and now we can close that. As we said earlier, with the Python programs that are assistant programs for this processes, it will confuse the hell out of them if you have more than one spreadsheet open. So best not to be bouncing back and forth between multiple open spreadsheets. All right. So going back here. So as we said, as we go through this, there's continual pruning that we do as we go through these different steps. And there's also columns that we add to. So add to and delete from. So first thing probably, most likely, is adjust the naming more to our standard convention if it hasn't been done already, like we did with changing the manufacturer catalog number to product code SKU. And we change the names of these various columns as it makes sense to do so and clean out some stuff. So in the case of manufacturer name, that is really referred to in the guide as a brand name, I think it is. Yeah, here. So copy and paste it there. These things just become more handy as we massage this data more and more into the final format. And of course, going through as I'm going through pruning, I can see that I only needed the map price, so I didn't want these. Since I know these are all each, I don't need an order quantity, so we can take that out. So then we delete those columns. And we just keep massaging this back. As we get more familiar with the data, we may find adjustments and screw-ups that need to be fixed, like something that's fairly common is the UPC code from some vendors will get scrambled. You see in the case of these, we have a little warning flag that comes up and that little green arrow that tells us that we have what Excel thinks as a number is being formatted and inserted as text. As you can see here, obviously a normal valid decimal number doesn't start with a 0. And so that's what's kind of warning. That is actually the valid format. If someone, the manufacturer, monkeyed with the spreadsheet, it may chop off the 0, or you may see gibberish and scientific notation. Sometimes the pricing, they put a dollar sign on the front of the pricing, and that needs to be removed, or some other little quirks. We've come up with a variety of little programs that help fix these issues, and we write additional ones as we come across from new surprises from our vendors. It would be too involved to list every possible combination of the little programs to help massage and clean up data that have been developed. But for example, in the case of UPC, when you see a UPC and it looks like it's scrambled, you're getting like 176E9623 or something like that. That's scientific notation. If you click on it and it looks right, but up here, but it looks gibberish there, then you've got one of those things. One of those little programs that we have that can fix that is Excel UPC add dash only, and if you run that, that'll put it in its proper format. Also doesn't help to, in that case, take the column, format the cells, and change it from general to text. And then it makes it less likely for it to screw things up when you click on it. Like in this case, if it's in general format, if I clicked on one of these things and went away, if it's stuck in general format, it'll do funny things like decide that, oh, okay, now that you've clicked on it, that's a number, and it'll take the 0 off, and that'll fuck it up. Valid UPC codes have to be 11 or 12 digits long normally. If you take the 0 off, the UPC code is invalid. That breaks Google search later on down the line. So all of these little tricks, as we said, there's a million little variations, no time to go through all of them, but that's an example. Now to make the spreadsheet easier to work with, the way they arrange the columns doesn't make the most sense for how we need to have them arranged to make it easy for us to process. So we rearranged the column order and group things in a way that's easier for us to work with. And if we look at the documentation for our import guide here, this will tell us generally the order of the columns and the naming that we need to have. Be careful with the brand name column, because in the import process, if Intermatic already exists as a brand and you import a new one and the name is uppercase in the site and lowercase here, now you've created 2 brands, and that will cause a headache for you later on. So whatever's in BigCommerce already, make sure it looks the same here. If you're creating it a new import for new brand, then the standard convention is the proper name and in all caps letters, which we can go ahead and use able bits and change case and change it to uppercase, and that solves that problem. When you do that, be careful not to change the case of the headings here, because that fouls up the BC import program. As you move things around, you will inadvertently, of course, create blank columns. When you do that, if it's a new column that you're going to use for something, be sure it has a heading on it. If it's an artifact, be sure you delete them, because if you have blank columns with no heading names in the spreadsheet, it will fuck up the Python programs that you use later on to clean up the data. Okay, so now we see the spreadsheet is starting to look something in the world of data is called normalized or rationalized data, where you have a consistency across the board, a consistent look and feel, consistent naming. So we're starting to look more and more like that. We've rearranged the columns in the suggested order according to the guide. As we've tripped across them, we've put in the proper BigCommerce names for these columns instead of the ones that the manufacturer had used. That makes it more intuitive for us. We've rearranged the order of the data to the suggested format, which basically starts out with brand, SKU, UPC codes, the weights and measures and prices. Sometimes we may hide these columns to get easier to scan around and do searches. Be careful that you unhide everything when you go to do the final import steps, or else you're going to end up with gibberish. Okay, categorization, descriptive information, specs and features that will wind up in the description. Um, the image URLs, the spec sheet and install guide URLs. Okay, so that's the standard format that we would expect to see for Mod 2, and so that completes the process. Occasionally, you may notice weird artifacts like that. This is something that AbleBits does sometimes. If you run a process, it'll make it tries to be non-destructive. So in this case, I had at some point changed the brand name to Bold. When I did that, it made a copy of the original. We don't need that anymore. We didn't make a mistake, so we can go ahead and delete those artifacts that AbleBits occasionally puts in there. And it's going to be a pain in the ass. All right, come on. We want delete. Yes. Be careful, that's a destructive process. And of course, the good point to save here since we've done a lot of changes. And that completes the BigCommerce version 2 Mod 2 process, and on to Mod 3.